Welcome to the Spunky Spirit Podcast. I'm your host, psychic medium Carrie Muggs. This is where we learn all things spirit, everything from spiritual gifts, awakenings, ghosts, aliens, and starseeds. Nothing is untouchable, but always fun and spunky. I am honored to be on this spiritual journey with you, so make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Hello. Welcome to Spunky Spirit. I'm Carrie Muggs, professional psychic medium, and this week we're going to talk about moon magic. So I've got to be honest. I've always known the moon has a special energy about it or specialness about it, but I don't use it in my practice. I don't use the energy when I do readings. So I've never really looked into it, and I'm not a huge astrology person. I mean, I love astrology, but I just haven't, as a medium, I just have my gift and I do what I do, and I don't, but I don't need the moon energy as much as different practices do. So, practices with witches and Wicca, I think, do need the moon energy a lot. Astrologers do moon energy a lot. That just hasn't been my realm. Not that I'm not interested in it. I remember when I was little, my dad was in the Air Force and he knew where all the constellations were and he loved the stars. So I do remember when I was little, my dad we'd go out in the backyard and he'd show me where all the constellations were. And I just felt like there was something magical about the stars. I am really into the stars, the moon, anything UFO, alien. I do love stuff like that just because my dad did. But it doesn't affect my readings. I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does somehow. But I just don't know how it does. And I don't need to harness that power to do my readings. So I've never really looked into it. But I think it's so interesting and fascinating. And I thought it would be, since there is a full moon coming up on Friday. And because I've started this Patreon group and I'm going to start doing moon ceremonies, I want to do better ones. I want to do ones that really, in the past I've been in kind of a hurry and I'm like, right, you're this step down, here's a reading. And so now I kind of want to bring in some sound therapy, some meditations. I really want to harness that energy because I know it's legit. I know it's real. And so today we're going to talk about a little bit of the moon and some of the energy that it has and things like that. So now, first of all, I want to go to the science related because I do have all my science people out there, and I am a science related person too. I like to have the science and spirit mixed together. I like that. I think that it just is so awesome when they can combine. So there's a few different hypotheses of how the moon was created. There's the giant impact hypothesis, which means that a giant object smashed into the earth, and like other planets, it's just the earth formed from the leftover cloud or dust or the gas orbiting around the sun. And so it just kind of was like a Mars-sized body, like the size of Mars, and it collided with Earth, and it just threw all these chunks together, and then it just created a moon. So that was kind of cool. I had never known about any of these theories. I was just like, it's there because God put it there. Or it's supposed to be there. So another one is the co-formation theory, which is now I'm kind of reading this off of a website, but under such an explicit, gravity would have caused material in the early solar system to draw together at the same time as gravity-bound particles to form the Earth. Such a moon would have very similar composition to the planet, and explain the moon's present location. So I kind of don't have to understand that, the core formation. So kind of like the Earth would form and its co-partner, the moon, would form. But that's still kind of, it's kind of the same Mars theory to me too. And also to the capture theory, where the gravity snagged a passing body of debris, as it happened with other moons in the solar system. I guess there's a Martian moon for Phoba, I don't know how to say these names. Anyways, under the capture theory, a rocky body is formed in the solar system, and it could be drawn around the Earth and orbit around the Earth. So like kind of all of these sound the same to me. And then there's the theory that it is man-made. The Earth is man-made, and there's people in it that control us. There's that theory. So, and that's not funny. I shouldn't make fun of any theories because we don't know, right? We don't know. Technically, we don't know. And there's that whole thing that we've been to the moon and some say we haven't. And this isn't conspiracy theory. This isn't, this is just you think what you think. You pull what you pull. You pull that pearl and decide, what do you think? Do you think that there could be people or things on the Earth on the moon that kind of create the energy and control the waves of the ocean and control the energy and all that stuff? So it's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting to look at all the theories. Now, as far as the spiritual aspect of the moon that I love, got a lot of my information on a book called Moon Magic by Diane Aliquist. Now, I'm going to be honest, I thought that she also has a book called Moon Spells. And I did get a lot of my information from this book, but a lot of it too is harnessing the moon's energy for different things like meditation, intuition, and intention and things like that. And I really believe a lot of this stuff is about intention. So she goes into spells and things like that, which is awesome because I love that too. But at the end of the day, it's all about intention and what we believe and what we think and where that goes and when to do that, like the best times of the moon to do that. So now the moon does go in phases, and the cycle is interesting to me. The cycle of the moon is every 29.5 days, which is also very, very concise with a menstrual cycle. Moons are also how in ancient days or olden days they told time with sun too, but moon would help them know what days are how many days. It would be a timekeeper, and so I kind of thought that was kind of cool too. Now there are different phases of the moon, but the moon I just want you to know that the moon, you can't deny. I mean, maybe you can, but I can't deny the moon's energy. There is an energy about the moon, and different phases of the moon have different types of energy. Even policemen, ER workers, hospital workers, school teachers they know when there's a full moon because of the energy, because it's so crazy and chaotic sometimes. And I can even feel the chaos too. But we have to ask ourselves, I'm always like I wonder, is this something that we caused because we put it out there, or is it something that really happens? Same with Mercury Retrograde. Do we just automatically think, oh crap, it's Mercury retrograde, bad things are going to happen, and we cause that from our intentions? Same with the full moon. I kind of always wonder that. But I do know that no matter what our intentions are, I think setting good intentions I think that the moon does have a very special energy about it. And I do think that when we set intentions under different moon phases, we will harness the power or the energy, not the power, but the energy of the moon. So I do believe in that 100%. So some of the different moons or moon phases are, the first one is the new moon. So I'm reading this a little bit out of the book, so forgive me if I sound monotone. But this is the primary first phase of the moon, and sometimes it's identified as the crescent moon. But this is the tiniest sliver when the moon appears in the sky. It looks like the right side of the letter D, I guess, or the right side of a parentheses. And how the new moon can support your life is, and this is new to me too, because I thought full moons are when you let something go and you bring something new in, but I guess that's new moon. So I'll be kind of changing up my moon ceremonies on Patreon. But this phase supports the early stages of developing an idea or an activity or planning anything that promotes betterment for your future. So goal setting, anything like that. It is the time for new beginnings and a great period to start new relationships of any kind. And it's a starting point to explore your new opportunities. And things that are coming towards you. You are basically planting seeds of thoughts during the new moon that will bloom into goals and start to manifest in the near future. Now the waxing moon, this is kind of the half moon look. This moon appears to grow in the size during this phase, and it's on the journey to the full moon. So what this waxing moon can support in your life is at this stage, the moon is gaining intensity. Therefore, it makes sense that this is the choice time to concentrate on amplifying things you already have. So amplifying things that such as relationships or things that you want to take to the next level. Don't forget like your bank account and finances. And what in your life do you want to enlarge or make better? Business growth, which this is good to know because I always just focused on the full moon. This is also a phase that promotes healing, which she says we'll talk about later in this. So it's cool that new moons are for beginning things and starting things. So if you want to start something or start something new, have that moon ceremony or moon something in the new moon. The waxing moon, this is when you want to amplify what you've already got. So if you've already got a relationship or you've already got a business, and you want to amplify that or make it better, the waxing moon is a good time to do that. Now the full moon is full and it looks bright and it's like a round circle, and it to me is so beautiful. That's why I always felt like it was the most magical. But what this can support is this is the moon's most powerful phase. When we see her in total illuminated appearance or just know it's there, this is the time of fulfillment. There's so much activity in this phase, and it's a time when you should try to perfect thoughts and plans. So pinpoint details. If you are intuitive or would like to increase your intuition or your psychic abilities, it may surprise you in this full moon phase. So meditating and manifesting, working on your intuition, this is actually pretty cool. So maybe I knew the moon affected intuition but I didn't understand how. This is the most intriguing time. It's all about strength and controlling your vibrations for a better outcome. Now, I clean my crystals during full moons. I put moon water out in a glass jar, and then I drink it for the next 3 days. I just have always done during things the full moon. But now that I'm reading this, or now that I have researched this, I think that, what I want to intent or have my intentions be, I will go to see which phase of the moon is going to help me do that. Now, the waning moon. What it looks like. The moon now appears as if it's getting smaller and smaller after it was full. What this can support in your life. This is an occasion for releasing and concluding, which totally makes sense. Overweight or want to start a diet or you're planning to lose weight. This is what she says, but I kind of love yourself. But you know what? If you do not feel good in your skin and you want to release something, this is a good time. Start your diet you were planning and maybe you will get smaller and smaller, like the moon itself during the phase. Get rid of bad habits, difficult relationships, and anything that is not working for you or that is personally toxic, such as negative thinking. So the waning moon is when you want to let go of things. Yeah, that's kind of cool. So the full moon is when you want to have your things and have peace among them. The waning moon is when you want to let things go. And so I just kind of did all of that in the same full moon ceremony. And I think you still can, but this is really kind of cool that the new moon and then the full moon and then the waning moon, it's all kind of a process, which is so cool. It comes in threes. Now they do talk about a dark moon. This is a phase that's not really included among the four main phases, but she's included it for clarity. Although some people will refer to the new moon and the dark moon interchangeably, she wants to separate the two. It looks dark. The moon is not visible. If your calendar shows a dark moon or a black spot, you can typically figure it occurs not only on that day, but also just the day before and after. And what this can support in your life is the dark moon is an occasion for soul searching, thinking, and being yourself, which totally resonates with the shadow self, right? Like you have to dig deep and figure out what's going on. By yourself in alone time. It is a period to dispense with things in your life. It's a period to dig deep. And the dark like figure out, like find the shadow, like the shadow of what's going on in your life. So that's kind of cool. Those are the different phases. And I loved that because I did everything on the full moon. And so when I was doing this research, I was like, this is so cool because every phase of the moon has a different thing. So I'm not sure how I'm going to implement that in Patreon. In March, this Friday, I'll probably still do the same thing I've done in the past, but in the future, I think I'm going to switch it up a little bit just because I think it's too late to change it up right now. But I also want to read this to you, the full moon magic. There's just a magic. I think the full moon is just magical. I just do. I don't know what it is. But when the earth is caught between the moon and the sun, the result is the full moon, bearing the most powerful energies of the lunar cycle. Here's what I want you to remember though. The moon is always full. So the moon just doesn't disappear. I mean, the moon is always full. So that energy and that strength is always there. It's just the way that the light is filtered by the sun. We see the moon because of the filtration from the sun. So sometimes the sun is so bright and so full of energy that it can be too much at times, or it can be so much energy, and the moon filters that. The moon filters that energy, and we get a little bit. That's how I like to think of it. And so the moon is always full. It's just that we see it with our own eyes and perceive it a different way that symbolizes different things in our life. And I really believe that the light diffused from the sun symbolizes different things on the moon, but the moon is always full. We just see it at different times or different phases of its life. So I thought that was good to remember, because I think some people just think, oh, the moon's full now. The moon's always full. It always has that magic. But because of the perception and the filtration of the sun, we get different forms of the energy through each phase. So I love that. Now, the moon has been used ancient forever. Its power has been used through like ancient generations. It's all over the globe. It's been used by Egyptians, Native Americans, Greeks, Hebrews, Chinese, and even more than that. So even though those differences, though, they all had one thing in common. They recognized the moon's prominence and power in the night sky, and as we do now. So the moon is used now by spiritual healers, witches, all different kinds of things. Now, what I think, I didn't know this. This was an interesting story when I was researching some of the stuff. So I'm going to read you some of the back history of some of the ancient moon things. I had no idea that this was used, but did you know Christopher Columbus used a lunar eclipse? Now, we're going to talk about eclipses later because I think eclipses are so powerful. But Christopher Columbus used a lunar eclipse and information he got from the almanac to frighten Jamaican natives into supplying food for his men. He told their group leader that God was upset with the natives because they stopped helping his men and providing food for them. The natives stopped helping because they were being abused, obviously, by Columbus's sailors, and they were getting greedy. Columbus explained that God told him he was angry and that he was going to take the moon away forever as a way of showing his rage. He also said he would return the moon red. After making calculations that took into account his location, Columbus told them when this would take place. Well, it happened. And just as he predicted, the lunar eclipse, which made the natives believe the moon disappeared, and the native people were so terrified they would never see the moon again. So, shortly before the eclipse was to end, Columbus said God was going to give them one more chance, and if they took care of his men, that everything would go back to normal. And of course they did. And yeah, and that's a sad story. That's a sad story, but I wanted to tell it because, one, please think for yourself if that's a true story. I just read it out of her book. I don't know if it's actual fact. I'm thinking if she wrote about it, it probably is. But again, I want to think for myself and know if it's actually true or not. But it's kind of sad because if we don't know better, or we can believe those things, and he just used what his knowledge does about astrology to control people. So be careful. I mean, that's just kind of a lesson. This is totally off on a tangent, but be careful because we can do the same thing now, especially with some different religions and backgrounds and things like that, if we believe that. Does that make sense? So I'm not dissing religion. Just be careful about what you believe, okay? Now, how does the moon affect us? Kind of talked about this before, ER workers, policemen, emergency workers, teachers, they know, they can tell when a full moon's coming, or they can tell the kids, people, it's kind of chaotic, a little bit of, and I think it's because we are filled with that energy from the moon, from the whole side of the moon, or that energy, and it kind of causes a little chaos sometimes. But some people, it causes peace. So it's just different for everybody. But the gravitational pull of the moon makes the climate on Earth temperature with predictable seasons, tolerable temperatures, and moderate winds. This is the scientific part. The moon stabilizes the tilt of the Earth's axis. The moon shows the spin of the Earth, so slows the spin of the Earth so humans can thrive. And the moon's lunar cycle powers the tides. This lunar tidal influence helped create the environment in which the precursors to RNA and DNA flourished. The light of the moon also gives off certain signals that spark the spawning of various marine species. So I thought that was cool. Now, a lot of people, think of lunar, the moon energy, as crazy and chaotic. And there have been ancient stories, and I'll go over some of that are like the wolf, the werewolf changes at a full moon, and lunatic is named after the moon because it's crazy and it's chaotic. And so I thought that was kind of interesting too. It's always had that kind of effect. So I kind of want to talk a little bit here about Mercury retrograde. Now, I think I'm going to explain what Mercury retrograde is by her writings, but I think too that we kind of have been told that it makes us crazy, or it's a hard time, or computer things go down, which can be true. But if we know this, sometimes we blame things on Mercury retrograde, or we think that, and so we allow that to happen, and we say, oh, it's Mercury retrograde. So it's all about intention. It's all about if you go into Mercury retrograde thinking things are going to be crazy, then things are probably going to be crazy. So, Mercury is moving in a retrograde manner, a motion that makes it appear to be going backwards in the sky. This happens 3 times a year for about 3 weeks. The planet Mercury rules communication, travel, and contracts, and so on. So when Mercury is in retrograde, communication systems can go haywire, machines can break down, cell phones get lost, you text the wrong person, and then that can cause some issues. Well, and that's why they also say exes can come back too. This retrograde lunacy should be taken into consideration when timing with your health procedures. Now, she does say, now there is some, I totally believe if Mercury is going to shift and go backwards, it is going to affect the energy somehow. And if Mercury is about communication, then yeah, communication can be altered, or communication, the energy can kind of be weird that way. But it's not always a bad thing, right? It can be frustrating. It can be, you can think that way, but don't always put it out there that it's going to be terrible and crazy, because sometimes it's not. So just know, some people even plan against Mercury retrograde or plan for the moon phases. She does have in this book, different days that you should do different things, and when your health, different days and different moon phases. Now, to me, you can do that, and that's totally fine. To me, I still feel like it's intention. I feel like we're just harnessing this energy, and it amplifies whatever intention we have. And I think that that's what spells do. So if we do spells or anything like that, or set an intention, it just depends on where the phase is in the moon and what energy that harnesses around that time of the moon. So, because here's the thing, spells are just setting intentions. So, of course, every time, the main common themes of spells when you do moon magic, or when there's, and forgive me if I'm totally, ruining this for some witches out there, because I don't have enough knowledge, so please don't go off what I say about this. Do your research if you're interested in this. Do your research, read about it, because I am just touching the very top of the surface about this. But I know in spells, it's all about intention. It's all about writing out your intention. That's why it's called spells, spelling, spells. So I do know that there are some main characteristics of spells. There's a candle is one of the characteristics, and the candle color goes with whatever you're doing. So if it's something about finances, you'll want to do gold or yellow. If it's something about love, you'll want to do pink. If it's something about health or money, you might want to do gold or green. So just go with what you feel, though. There's no rules. If there might be some rules to some organizations of how to do it, but honestly, go with your gut. I'm always a big person on intuition and how you feel. So anytime I do a finance or any kind of intuition or spell about finances, I always use green, white, and gold. And I use the same colored crystals around those two. So, and then a lot of times you'll have to have some sort of spices or things like that. And an intention, which is usually, they call it a spell, but it can be a poem, and you can make it up yourself. You can get a book of spells, but honestly, if it's kind of cool if you make it up yourself. In fact, I've been trying the last couple of weeks to just like write little poems and create my own, and I think it's actually kind of cool. Like, I have been, I didn't think that I was a poet or a rhyme or whatever, but honestly, I am kind of starting to write some spells, and I think it's awesome. So I'll probably start putting some of them out there. Now, of course, they're not going to be super great for like organized, if you're really, really going into the witches part of it, because I am not. It's so hard because I kind of do feel like a witch deep down, but it's always about intention. It somehow resonates with me, and maybe one day it's going to be something that I look more into it. But witch is not a bad thing. It's always about intention. It's always about using your gifts or your intuition. And I love the fun part of the magic and it just gets me excited. So try writing your own spells, see how that is. And that's how spells kind of work. Now you use the different moon phases and the different energy to do these spells in. And now that I've told you which phase works best for what things, you'll kind of know when you need to do them. So I know now if I want to do an amplify my business kind of spell, I used to do it, if you want to begin a business, you do it the new moon. If you want to amplify what you already have, you do it at the full moon. So, and then if you want to let things go, you do it at the last phase of the moon. I think that was waning. So love, love, love that. And I just want you to know that I'm so, my clairsentient, when we had the eclipse, I was able to see the full eclipse. I was in a location where I could see the whole thing, and it was so spiritual and so magical. It's so hard to explain. And even my brother, he does have a little bit of the same gift I do, but it's in dreams, just like my youngest daughter. They're very clairvoyant. They see in dreams. And even he was just like, that was the most spiritual thing I've ever experienced, that full moon eclipse. And it was amazing, and I can't even describe the feeling. And if you ever have a chance to see or be in a full moon eclipse, you can feel that energy, and it's just the most powerful thing ever. So I know without a doubt that there is power in the moon. There's energy in the moon. There's energy in the stars. There's so much that we don't know. And I just feel like I would even do an injustice to, I just feel like I've always had a special bond with the moon. It's just always been my thing. And believe it or not, the moon does come across as being female a lot. And we believe that. But in the beginning, there was some male, I think in some of the different cultures. I think the Viking one, Alaska and Greenland had a myth about the moon that it was a male. And also there was another one there was lots of different stories. I'm going to go over the half hour and read some of these stories about some of the stories about ancient moons, because I think that ancient history of some of the stories around the moon, because I think they're kind of cool. And I think that there's got to be some sort of truth to them. I don't know what it is, but I think there's got to be some sort of truth. So and I'm going to mispronounce things. Please don't email me. It's just who I am. So the change, it's spelled Chang with an apostrophe E. This is a China myth. There's a very famous Chinese myth about a woman who is said to live on the moon. There are different variations of the myth, but the basic story is that she and her husband were once immortal beings who were made mortal because of their bad behavior. They then attempted to achieve immortality again through the use of a pill, but Change got greedy and took too much of the pill and ended up floating up to the moon, where she remained stuck forever. She is the subject of much Chinese poetry and is one of the central reasons for celebration each autumn during the Chinese Moon Festival. Number 2, this is from China, Korea, and Japan. It's the moon rabbit story. This is an interesting myth because it crosses across several different cultures. And I will post the website I'm getting this from down in the story links. It's called 10 Interesting Myths and Legends About the Moon. This is an interesting myth because it crosses across several different cultures. The moon rabbit or jade rabbit is said to be one of the companions of Change, what we just eventually was allowed to have with her on the moon. However, it is also a symbol that shows up in the myths about the moon in Korea and Japan. So this is the moon, it's the rabbit, and it's a jade rabbit. This is interesting. I might go get a jade rabbit. And so Change, the one we just talked about, got to have a pet with her. Selene or Luna, this is the Greek and Roman one. These are the names of the moon goddesses in Greek and Roman mythology, respectively. In the myths associated with these goddesses, the goddess is paired with the god of the sun, Helios, in Greek mythology, and Sol in Roman mythology. So interesting to me that the mythologies in different areas have the same story, which means their origin or something in the very beginning had to be similar. So it's interesting to me that maybe in the very beginning somewhere these stories happened and they got told down through generation after generation. Anyways, he travels throughout the day and she takes over the journey at night. She is typically considered to be a passionate goddess who takes many lovers and who represents the desire associated with the moon. That's kind of cool. That's a cool one too. Not all of the deities associated with the moon are goddesses. This is an Aztec one, and I cannot even pronounce the name. It's like Tezcatlipoca or something like that. This is an example of a male god that is associated with the moon. What is interesting about the myths surrounding him are how many of the same symbols from different moon myths are found in the stories about him. Again, same story, different cultures. Although he was an Aztec god, there are associations with the Asian cultures. He was in rabbit form, which is the one we just mentioned about the moon rabbit, and even associations with modern-day moon myths like the story of the man on the moon. I thought that was kind of cool too. And Ninigan, I don't know, but he's an Inuit, Inuit, I think. I don't know how to say that. Sorry, guys. People of northward regions like Alaska and Greenland have had a rather horrifying myth about the moon, so I probably won't say these words because it's not. They believe that Ninigan, also as Agillik or Anagan, I don't know, the moon god, attacked his sister, the sun goddess. Worse, they believe that he's still trying to chase her down and possess her. That's why he follows her in the sky every day. The waxing and the waning of the moon is explained as he is chasing her until he is starving and then disappeared for a bit to hunt for food and then have the energy to come back again. So crazy. It's so awesome to me, these different ancient stories explaining how the moon works or explaining these things. Right? It's so fascinating to me. Mawa and Africa, a much happier couple. Based on a story about the moon, is a myth from Africa which says that Mawa is a moon god who is forever linked in unity with the sun goddess Liza. It is believed that the lunar and the solar eclipse are related to lovemaking times of the celestial couple. This myth is clearly about the power of the moon, the sun, the sky, and the love and desire. So Soma is the Hindu story. This is the Hindu god that is associated with the moon. It's interesting because the fact that there are several additional symbols that we see that are commonly associated with the moon again. In Hindu art, Sama is sometimes an embryo and sometimes a bull. Fertility is frequently associated with the moon, and I kind of knew this too. The bull is also a symbol that has shown up as related to the moon across the cultures. The main thing about Soma, though, is it's the link to the moon as an elixir. Soma is the name of a drink said to be consumed by the gods. Interestingly, the moon rabbit who lives on the moon with Chang in the Chinese myth is also an elixir-making symbol. Isn't that I just am so fascinated about, I don't know, just the way that ancient stories and histories come down. It's going to be so interesting one day when I'm going to be on the other side and I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. That's how it all works. But Rona is a New Zealand one. Now, please, if I'm mispronouncing those names, just know this is who I am. If you don't like it, you don't have to listen. So this is a story that comes from a Maori tribe in New Zealand. The story is about a young woman named Rona who disappeared, who displeased the moon. So the moon seized her and took her away. In the myth, she grabs onto a tree and it drags with her to the moon. It is believed by some that the tree is said to represent fertility, further linking the moon with this symbol. That's kind of cool. It's so interesting, too, that fertility, like new things, new beginnings. That's why I always thought the full moon was so representative, new things to come in. So that's because it is. It's just such just a new beginning. It's so beautiful. The Mayan people, Mrs. Ezekiel Mayan, have several stories about different moon goddesses. One goddess frequently associated with the moon is Ixchel, who is associated with the moon because she is a fertility goddess. However, it is believed that she may actually be the grandmother of the moon and represent aging and drying up fertility in old age, so she is most commonly linked with the waxing moon and not the moon at all times. That's interesting too. Werewolves. One of the creatures that we often see depicted in movie myths and legend is the werewolf. This creature is, of course, affiliated with the full moon. Typically, it is believed that these are creatures that have human form, but that morph into wolf-like, typically violent creatures when the full moon is in the sky. Some legends state that if you get bitten by a werewolf, you will also become one during the full moon. In other tales, the only way to kill a werewolf is with a bullet made of silver. There are many different variations on this because all of the books and movies that have been made about werewolves. I just want to reiterate too, we always think that the wolves howl at the moon, and in reality, that's when they mostly hunt because of the brightness of the full moon, they can see their prey better. And so when they hunt and they howl, it's usually a lot of the time during a full moon because they are hunting and communicating with each other. I thought that was super interesting. It's not because of a full moon. So the magic of the moon. These are just 10 examples of the different stories. But using these forms of stories, you can see the moon has become a symbol of love, desire, change, passion, beginning, fertility, and even violence. And you saw that with kind of Christopher Columbus too, using the moon. And again, it's all about intention, right? If you use the moon magic for good and to help and to love and to do those things, then it's good. If you use the energy of the moon for something bad, it will probably create something bad. So again, I talk about intention in all of my podcasts, most of them, because intention is so important. I just really believe you get what you put out there. So now I will list this website and this book down in the notes, but I hope you guys loved this as much as I did. I love the moon, and I don't even know how to explain it. I never really got into the depth of it because I kind of am ADD and I get too boring with the scientific parts of it. I just know in my heart and I know in my gut and I know in my intuition that it's important, and the energy, I can feel the energy around it and I love it. So, but I don't need to know the details. I just know I'm not a detailed person. And sometimes I like to know how things work, but not when it comes to astrology and the moon, because it is interesting, but I love the feeling. I love the energy of it. So that's when we do a lot of my work with in intention. So that's all for today. I hope you guys liked that. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And again, if you want to start being part of some of the moon ceremonies, go to Patreon. I am going to start doing moon ceremonies there for the people who are there with me. This month I'll probably do a regular one on the full moon, but I actually, if I have time, I might start implementing different ceremonies for different times of the moon. And they'll be simple, but it'll be really cool. So I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you guys next week.